it for the evening. Thanks everybody for coming and learning more about Alberta Free. No, we're just getting started. We didn't drive all the way from Edmonton and Calgary just to show a video. My name is Doug Lowen, and born and raised in St. Albert, and I want to share with you a little bit about what's coming up tonight. So my role with this company is, and it sounds really important, it's Vice President. Sounds really good. Vice President of Stakeholder Safety. So you're going to learn tonight what it means to be a stakeholder in Alberta Free. I wanted to share with you really quickly my passion for freedom. And there's actually somebody in this room who I've known longer than anybody, and it's Gordon and Valerie. I met them in 1992. So I think I even was passionate about freedom back then. We were driving motorcycles in 1992 all around the U.S. And I think I was actually instrumental in bringing those two together, and they got married later. But the story might shift a little bit. But you know what? For me, my journey of freedom really started actually 20 years ago this month. I met somebody at a trade show, and he just kind of opened my eyes to kind of the corruption, and I thought, wow, there's a lot of things I don't understand. Well, fast track to these last few years. And I think there's a lot of people who've become a lot more passionate about what freedom is all about. So you're going to learn tonight about the 7 spheres of freedom and how you can be involved. So, before we jump in, I got something a little bit heavy to share with you. It's there was a fellow who passed away recently of unknown causes, and he's standing at the pearly gates, and he's with St. Peter, and he looks behind and goes, "What are all those clocks on the wall?" St. Peter said, those clocks represent every time you lie, the minute hand moves once. I said, whose clock is that? The hands have hardly moved. And he said, that's the late, great Reverend Billy Graham. So, that makes sense. And then he sees another clock, and he says, no, that minute hand's only moved twice. Whose is that? He said, well, that's Honest Abe. Oh, wow. He's looking around, he's just fascinated. He goes, hey, just curious, I don't see Justin Trudeau's clock on the wall. And he goes, well, Jesus is using it in his office as a ceiling fan. So, if you notice there, that's an ideal joke if you want to push the limits and get really bold, because I combined COVID, religion, and politics all in one joke. So that's the kind of company Alberta Free is. We're a bold company, and we're going to boldly share some things with you guys tonight to show you not only the information, because you're going to learn a lot of information tonight. It might feel a little like drinking through a fire hose, but we want to take it further so that not only do you learn something, but we want to share with you some solutions that we've got that are really, really exciting. And then what can you do to take a step forward and be involved and make a difference in what's going on all around us. So I'm going to encourage you, because there are some little pieces of paper on your table where you can write questions down. We encourage you to do that through the evening if something's not clear, because at the end we're going to take probably 15 or 20 minutes for questions. I encourage you to turn your phones off or on vibrate so it's not bugging you too much. Take some notes if you can. And I want to introduce you to the 2 principals behind Alberta Free. They're the gentlemen who are going to be speaking tonight. First of all, Benoit Trudeau. He was born in Montreal and moved to Alberta in 2008, where he met his wife Jennifer. They have been married for 11 years and have 4 children. Ben has started many businesses. He is a true, what you call a serial entrepreneur. He was also involved actively in Quebec in politics for 10 years. Part of that as a special assistant to the Minister of Labour in the Canadian Economic Delegation under the Harper government. He was responsible for $4.5 billion in grant funds. So Ben has a very long track record of government lobbying. And then my friend George Bears, who I've actually known for a little over 25 years now. Ben is up in just outside of Edmonton, and George is in Calgary. George has been married to his wife Julie for 25 years, and usually we joke and say, I met Julie 10 years before George did, but she was actually my babysitter, and it's not appropriate to date your babysitter, so I left her on the free market for George one day, and he's thankful for that. But together, George and Julie have 3 children, and George was actually involved as the National Director of Victims of Violence, and he got involved with his organization due to a personal tragedy in his own life. George has got a real heart for justice. He has started many, many businesses as well, And part of George's claim to fame is he started an organization which some of you in this room will be familiar with, and that's Taking Back Our Freedoms, TBOF. George and Roy Byers started that organization together a couple years ago. So George and Ben met in the back room of politics. You know, we're all priming up for May 29th. These two are freedom fighters. They've been involved in the back room, you know, working behind the scenes and things that a lot of us would never know that's happening. So would you give a big round of applause for my friends Benoit Trudeau and George Beresford.
Thank you, Doug. Doug and I go back to, 1997, a long time ago. I'm probably one of the oldest people in the room tonight. I'm in 1957. I met a gentleman tonight, 11 months younger than me. They're always younger than me. Anyway, it's great to be here in Medicine Hat, and it's great to be in Alberta. I grew up in Prince Edward Island. Came to Alberta back in the mid-'80s. I love the island, I love the ocean, and everything the island has to offer, except that it became too much of an entitlement culture, and came to Alberta because of the freedom and the entrepreneurial spirit of Albertans. And when you look at Canada in the world now, with the World Economic Forum in the last 3 years, how many people here really had their eyes open the last 3 years with the WEF? You know, five to 8 years ago, I might not have even turned my head if you mentioned the World Economic Forum, because quite frankly, I wasn't paying attention. Since the early 90s, I've been a serial entrepreneur and just had your head down and doing your business, and all of a sudden, the last 3 years, with the, you know, what they say, want to flatten the curve, it just didn't feel right from the beginning. And then to find out the agenda of Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum, it's just absolutely outrageous what we've experienced here, particularly when you think of Alberta. The great prize for the WEF is the US. And of course, we're their longest trading partner. So Canada is the consolation prize. And if you look in Canada, and I can say this because I come from Prince Edward Island, and we were out there with the truckers last year during the whole lockdowns that we had. And certainly Alberta is the ground zero for freedom in Canada. Canada is the #1 target of the World Economic Forum. So all eyes from the globalists are on Alberta. The good thing about Alberta is it resonates with some of the best people I've ever seen. They pull themselves up by the bootstraps. They're people of faith, and they're people of great courage and an entrepreneurial spirit. So after Alberta Free, when it came into being, Ben was part of Take Back Alberta. I was part of Taking Back Our Freedoms. We worked very closely with the Mountain View Freedom Group and a number of other freedom groups. And I want to commend you too, Ty, for your freedom group that you've got here. It's just great to see the number of freedom groups across Alberta. It's just amazing, actually. And that's the resiliency and the courage and the toughness of that Alberta spirit. And when Ben and I came together after the Premier was elected last fall and after the AGM, we said, what's the next step? And you only have to look around at what the lockdowns have caused for all of the tremendous travesty of businesses failing because of this intentionality, of this absolute nonsense. And we've both been hardcore advocates, myself in the Canadian criminal justice system and other things over the years. So we learned how to make things happen and how the machine works and how if you stand for integrity and stand for the right things, you can bring about change. So our whole lives have been, I guess you could say, providentially guided to bring us to this hour. And we said, what if we could look at Alberta as the greatest freedom jurisdiction in the world? You know, what Klaus Schwab has meant for evil, I believe God is going to work out for good in this province of Alberta. And the Lord has put that in our heart. We're both men of faith, and we thank the good Lord for the calling He's put in our heart. And we believe that Alberta Free is an Isaiah 43:19 company, where He put it in our heart that He's going to do a new thing. He's got great hope for this province. And He's making pathways in the wilderness and streams in the desert. And He's making a way where there seems to be no way. Even when we look to May 29th. May 29th is Election Day, but it's also another very important day. It's the day of Pentecost. Only God could bring that about. Anyways, Alberta Free is looking at lobbying from a much different lens, in a way that truly has never been done before. Most lobbyists are the guys that look after and go after multinational businesses, which most of them these days are globalists. We said, what if we looked at it through a different lens? If the Prime Minister's talking about diesel rationing and climate crimes and all kinds of other garbage, what if we were to look at the opposite side of that lens? And what if we were to look at resiliency? A good friend, Den Crawford, has been a great part of the evolving of Alberta Free. He's here tonight. And he talks about resiliency and the stability of Alberta. If we can take Alberta-owned companies and begin to help them build in a way where they're putting GDP back in our culture. You take Cargill, one of the largest meatpacking plants in this province, and they're from the U.S. They don't have any concern about growing Alberta GDP. What if we could take small and mid-sized oil and gas companies and other kinds of petroleum-related companies and see what we could do to help them? One such company is Alberta Independent Refineries. Anybody who's ever driven up Highway 2 around Bowden there, you'll see these refineries on both sides of the road. Our client, Bryce Carl, his dad built those refineries back in the late 70s. And back in December, we took on Alberta Independent Refineries because they want to fight against what the federal government is trying to do to ration our petroleum in this province. We're the third largest petroleum resource in the world. And he wants to take a stand to fight back. He is our client now. And we bring in what we call anchor clients. But the problem is, when you've got all of the money of BlackRock Capital and George Soros and all the rest of those guys, he needs help. So how our model works is we bring in a client like that who has the best interests of Alberta in mind. And he's looking to build initially three refineries, probably as many as 5. The first 2 will be in Grand Prairie and right down here in Milk River. And making diesel fuel available to Albertans at a reasonable cost for Albertans and made from Alberta. And another one of our clients is Brett Olden with Bow Valley Credit Union. It's a gold-backed credit union, causing all kinds of waves in the Canadian banking system. We just love his vision. He's got 6 locations. We're helping him to grow to 87 to 100 locations across Alberta. But he needs our help. He needs our help. And our model is simply this. We continue to bring on clients that have Alberta's best interests in mind. And when the globalists come calling and want to crush them, we call upon Albertans from every walk of life. Business people and non-business people alike, although it's mainly business companies. And we call on them to be stakeholders standing with our clients so we can take back our sovereignty of Alberta. We can take back our future of Alberta. And we can see in Alberta in the next 5 to 10 years leading the world in freedom. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Ben Trudeau, and thank you very much.
So I'm related to him, but from 16, 20 something, so it's not very close. I moved to Alberta in 2007. Politics brought me to Alberta. I was raised in Montreal in a very politicized family, and not because of the name, because of my dad's job. He's a spin doctor down east, so we take care of whatever narrative they're spinning on the stuff. He's at probably his 40th retirement, and of course he was brought back in force with COVID, so I don't have a very good relationship with my dad, that's why I'm out west. But I know very well how things work and how politics works, and I co-founded a political party in Quebec, provincial party in 1994, and we were driving the 1995 referendum campaign because our party gathered 6.5% of the vote like 3 months after starting that party. And this is exactly what Parizeau, the premier at the time, and Bouchard were looking for, to be able to shift it to the yes. So I was 22, the leader of our party was 24, and we got like swallowed in that campaign, and we were able to modify the question. So a lot of Westerners don't know that the 1995 referendum campaign in Quebec was not for independence. The question of the referendum was, do you give the mandate to the premier to go negotiate a new deal with Ottawa, and if they don't want to move, then we separate? And I believe this is a question that's very valid for Alberta today, but that's another story. Through politics and through business, I ended up with the Harper government in 2006, in the minority government, as the political boss of Canada Economic Development. And through there, I was sent by the cabinet to negotiate something with Alberta, who was booming in construction, and we were sinking money in Quebec to the height of 4.5 billion to help the manufacturing businesses to die slower with the Chinese competition. So the Prime Minister wanted to build a bridge between Quebec and Alberta. I was sent here, and the day I was sent here, first time I stepped into this province, I really felt like I needed to stay. And that morning I had a breakfast with Premier Stelmach, and I resigned after that breakfast and I moved here. So that's how I ended up in Alberta. As a land developer, I'm an urban planner by trade, so I do bylaws, land development and all that. And I've been doing that for 15 years in this province. Met my wife in Edmonton and got married, and Sherry had 2 kids. So we have 4 kids, 23, 22, 10 and 8. So, and I was a fierce Quebecer in Quebec. I'm a fierce Albertan here. You know, I've been raised not being Canadian. So I keep on not being Canadian first. I'm first Albertan. My family is here. We grew up here, and I went out of politics after moving here, doing just business. But when Jason Kenney flip-flop on that vaccine mandate, it took about 3 days for my wife to scrape me off the ceiling, and I said, okay, I need to do something. And I went back in politics, and I went back with TBA, and that led to where we are today. And that campaign, Alberta Free, basically, you know, if you close your eyes and you look at Alberta as an island and say, okay, we are the only territory in North America, or at least Canada, that can be self-sufficient in everything. We can be self-sufficient in energy, which is the #1 thing that we need to produce everything. Then we can be self-sufficient in food, we can be self-sufficient in manufacturing if we want to, and we're not. That province had a culture to sell out and cheap out and selling out the resources. Basically, Alberta Free intention is to render that province sovereign, is to be able to build businesses, encourage businesses, build up this new network to separate us from the control of large corporation. If we look at our vision, so we're thinking of Renaissance thinking, which is thinking outside the box, but beyond that, it's finding new ways of doing stuff. Parallel economy, which I believe we need to do. We cannot rely on our economy right now, and that kind of a on-off switch of the oil industry and the rest, and growing local GDP, that we might be able to, in any part of Alberta, to have a good life and be able to start business and be successful in what we do, which is all shall prosper, which is not at all a socialist communist version of the all shall prosper, but mainly that everybody should have as a small business the opportunity to be successful in what they do.
So for that, we have anchor projects. So the anchor projects are linked to these 7 spheres of freedom. We identified these spheres of freedom as if we succeed in being independent or sovereign in every of these spheres, we achieve the goal. We would be able to live a way better life and live something solid for our children. So we have these anchor projects to which we find anchor clients, and then from these anchor clients we have these stakeholder clients, and this is very important in lobbying because the way lobbying works, it works by influence, and it works here in Canada. A bit under the radar. Nobody knows exactly what lobbying here is in this country. In the States, it's way more open, way more known. But here in Canada, no, it's mainly lawyers that do that, and for clients, and they mainly do it for money and for the future of their client. And those who take these services are usually big corporations, because they know the power of it, and they know who to talk to, and they have the money to pay. So we were saying, how can we do that for the same grassroots movement that were able to shift that province, to shake everything with the convoy, with what happened with the UCP, with Kenny, with everything. How can we apply that to lobbying and render lobbying accessible to everybody? And then we had that concept saying, you know what, if we go sit with the Minister of Energy and tell him, you know what, we want a new refinery in this province, and we want to ease up some regulations, he will look at us and say, well, guys, you know what, we'll have to speak to Suncor, because Suncor gave us $20 billion a year, and I will certainly not bring a threat to that. No, I won't shake them because it's too much money. But if I was the same Minister of Energy and tell him, you know what, I want to change legislation for the refinery, and here's my client who can actually build a refinery, who actually run 2 refineries in Saskatchewan, and he's willing to do the same here, and he might not produce $20 billion a year, but there's 200 ranchers in your riding that backed it up. So if you don't want us to go door knocking and tell people of your decision, we want you to listen to us. And this is the power of the stakeholders. It's to compensate for the money that we don't have. Because one thing that politicians are afraid is an election and not to be re-elected. So the stakeholders who bring the projects compensate for the billions that we don't have to push these projects. These are our spheres. So one by one, energy and environment, it's kind of self-explaining. Finance and wealth, that include, of course, we have our client right now, Blue Valley, that is gold-backed, but we have other projects that we're working on, including for Blue Valley, because again, once we have our client, we have our anchor project, we have an anchor client, but on top of doing what we're doing tonight and gathering people behind these projects, we do lobbying for these clients. So Blue Valley Credit Union, we have a mandate to gather people and start new branches, but as well, the other mandate we have with them is to lobby the government to change the legislation on banking in Alberta and to be able to protect at least the credit union or the provincially managed institution from FinTrack and other tools that the federal government has. Health and well-being, that includes, we don't produce any meds in this province. So we import everything so I believe that we should be able to produce the minimum pharmacy, from insulin to aspirin. We should have at least a couple of shops in this province that produce these, So that's the thought of that. Lifestyle and culture, we import everything, culturally speaking, and I believe there is amazing artists in this province, and they're not valued to the point they should be valued, and we should be pushing on preserving our culture and our lifestyle as well. And when I say lifestyle, I include in there God's possession and other stuff that's parts of our lifestyle because of the territory on which we live on. And So, and then food and agriculture, again, take back control of our packing plants and our production capacity in market gardening and all that. Technology communication, with the Bill 11 that's coming up, I believe that it's about time that we create our own network of computers, no emails. I mean, right now as we speak, there is no servers in Alberta. You cannot host your website on an Albertan server. And I believe this is tragic because everything runs on these machines, and we cannot let somebody else, and even the states control these servers and that computing facilities. Manufacturing, transportation, well, that link again with the manufacturing part of it. And in facts in there, I'm going to show you in health and well-being. We sent that money to Ottawa, and then they put their condition to give it back to us, and we have to negotiate to get back our money. Well, that needs to change, and Ottawa have recently signed, and it's a bunch of agreements with the World Health Organization. They did funded in the past 3 years for over $17 million of special studies and research to the WEF directly. There's Christopher Freeland, she's on the board of the WEF, so we need to cut with them, and we need to get some our own organization to validate our new meds and all that. Most of the decisions that affect our lifestyle come from Ottawa. I mean, it's 4,000 kilometers away. I'm the only one in my family that lives out west. I know what it is to drive to Quebec. I've done it a couple of times. It's 3 days. So how in the world can they know how we live here? They have no clue. They have no idea. They don't even know what Alberta can look like. So we need to take back. We need to stop letting Ottawa decide what happens on the culture side. No food and agriculture. We produce 75% of the beef of the country. 82% of it is packed by 2 companies, Cargill and JBS. 82%. Brazilian and American. We met a rancher in near Grand Prairie. He has over 2,000 bison, and every year he loads his bison on a train. The bison are shipped to Nevada, slaughtered in Nevada, then shipped to Arizona. They make sausage with it and ship it back here to sell at Costco. This is ridiculous. So we need to stop that process. The fact that I come from Montreal. Most of produce come through either Montreal on Toronto, and we ended up at the end of the line in Edmonton. It's hard to find a good fruit, good vegetables, because we're at the end of the line. We need to develop our own ways, our own distribution network for that. In terms of technology, during the Toyota convoy, TELUS did send to the federal government the location of 33 million devices. So that includes truck GPS, that includes phone, that includes everything TELUS that they can locate. They share with the government, and this is sad because TELUS was an Alberta company. I mean, it's Edmonton Telecom, it's Calgary Telecom that joined to be privatized. So we need to take back control of our telecom. In terms of manufacturing, we do import every year 68 billion from other Canadian provinces. So I'm not talking here bananas and avocados. I'm talking products made in Canada. So if it's made in Ontario, it can be made in Alberta. If it's made in Quebec, it can be made in Alberta. So we need to have an Alberta-centric ways of developing our own stuff to keep our money here. In terms of energy, we export all of our diesel out of the province. Alberta imported $3.4 billion of oil products from BC last year. So and not only that, but now we are at a point where it's not even a question of price anymore, it's a question of availability. I mean, there are trucking companies, trucker companies that no, they wanted to deal, they want to negotiate their diesel load for the year. Usually they deal that, in fall, and then they get. So this year, not a single rancher, not a single transportation company was able to secure its diesel for the year. So you own 100 truck, good luck to know if you can be able to fuel them all year long. Meanwhile, in 18 months, they are shutting down Sarnia, who's the largest refinery. Well, the Sarnia won't exist in 18 months. Biden administration, every year, they reduce by 2 million barrels a day production of diesel. So right now, they're aiming to create a scarcity in diesel to control the supply of that. So for that, we have that client. I'll show you a video of our client, Alberta refinery. I will tell you a bit more after.
So my name is Bryce Carl. I am a fourth generation Albertan.
My name is Jacob Hardy. I'm Vice President of Business Development and Marketing with Alberta Independent Refineries.
I'm Matt Trickey, Senior Vice President of Operations.
Hi, I'm Lance Carl with Alberta Independent Refineries. I work in the marketing and sales sector. We're excited to start this new project and look forward to seeing what we can do for Alberta.
Alberta Independent Refineries is currently focusing on two products. The main focus right now is actually on producing hydrogen. The second product we'll be producing is diesel.
Alberta Independent Refineries existed so that we could look at opportunities in Alberta where we could make the most difference. We can take a local supply, refine it in a certain area, turn it into products, cut down on logistics, transportation, and then it would be beneficial for the customers in those areas where they could take a local product and then use it for their benefit.
We are excited for the opportunities of the new hydrogen program. Hydrogen is used to remove the sulfur from our fuels that makes us a spec fuel company. Hydrogen is made from natural gas. Ironically, natural gas is one of our largest natural resources here in the province of Alberta. And we look forward to working with all those natural gas suppliers, creating an opportunity for them to take that natural gas into hydrogen and fueling for the future.
What distinguishes Alberta Independent Refineries from its competition is its ability to move quickly with its size, capacity, and logistics. It can transport materials in a much closer distance to customers. It's strategic because it places a refinery where the source of the supply is, rather than trucking crude oil across the province to different locations. It can refine the crude right in that area, and then we can refine it, produce it, and use it for those local customers in that area.
Now, the microrefinery utilises a process called steam methane reforming, where we utilise natural gas, which is primarily methane, mixed with steam over nickel catalyst to make hydrogen.
Another competitive advantage that we have is that we're strategically located in these facilities in industrial heartland.
We are excited for the opportunity of going forward and starting to convert some of our fleet over to hydrogen trucks that will deliver hydrogen as well as diesel fuel throughout the province of Alberta. We will secure our energy future, and we will secure the future of generations to come. And to be a grassroots refinery that now is integrating the opportunity of providing access hydrogen to a growing and demanding hydrogen market.
So this is a very good example of what we're doing as lobbyists, because when we took them as clients, the project was to build diesel refineries. As we looked, we noticed that in 2006 or 2008, under Stelmach, the federal government offered to all the prairie province to get away from the regulations in refineries by signing a protocol that, okay, we won't regulate the refineries anymore. And BC signed it, Saskatchewan signed it, Manitoba signed it, and then Alberta said, no, we want you to stay to keep on regulating our refineries. So that preclude to build any refineries in Alberta still today. And this is what lobbying on the other side does, because the last refinery has been built in this province was in 1984, Northwest Refinery, and we're still paying as taxpayer for every barrel of diesel they pay a day. We're at 13 billion so far that we paid for them since 1984. So for every barrel of diesel they produce, we give them a royalty on the barrel, and then they ship it to the US, and then we buy it back from them. Anyway, so This is Alberta. This is Alberta in terms of energy. So what we've done with them, no, the federal government don't want us to build diesel, but they want us to do hydrogen. So when we learned that they use hydrogen, so the image you saw there, this is a refinery not far from here, 2 hours, an hour and a half from here, Cape Robert in Saskatchewan. So this is where that refinery is located. And when we learned that they were using hydrogen, we decided to shift the project and say, okay, then you will become a hydrogen plant that you a side of diesel with it. And then by doing that, not only now do we have the right to build these refineries, but the federal government will put money in them because of hydrogen plants. So that's a good example of what we're doing. Finally, the finance and wealth. During the trucker convoy, of course, there's been all these bank accounts being seized. By the way, the Canadian institution that seized the most bank account at the trucker convoy was ATB. So Alberta Treasury Branch. So we have to modify first. I believe we have to stop having a treasury branch that offer retail banking because they're actually competing against other banks by doing so, and they're regulating as well. So they have like a double stuff, and they're right now fighting fiercely against our client, Brett Holland, for which I will show you a video here.
My name is Brett Holland. I'm the president and CEO of Bow Valley Credit Union. Originally, I come from Medicine Hat, Alberta, but lived in Alberta most of my life. And I'm actually a fourth generation Albertan and an 8th generation Canadian. So the main difference between Bow Valley Credit Union and a regular bank is a couple of things. The first one being we are member-owned, we're not shareholder-owned. We're not necessarily concerned about making profit at the end of the day. We're here to serve our membership and their needs. Because Bow Valley Credit Union is asset-backed, it instills confidence in our financial institution. Whereas if it's just backed by fiat currency or government promises, if there's a failure in the confidence to the financial institution or the government, basically the fiat currency fails. Gold and silver as an asset backing of an organization has been around for thousands of years and has been considered money and a hard asset for thousands of years. And so therefore, backing up your organization with real money, honest money, gold and silver and precious metals, it effectively adds an extra level of confidence to the financial institution and the people that bank with that financial institution. I don't agree with central bank digital currencies. I don't agree with digital identification, open banking, anything that basically, not necessarily this government, but a government in the future may be able to take control of and basically dictate how you live your life. For example, with the central bank digital currency, it not only records sort of the date, time, amount of your transaction, but can also track what you got with your transaction. So for example, if you went to the grocery store and you bought too much red meat, or not enough vegetables, or too many French fries, or something like that, effectively what you could do with the central bank digital currency is shut down your account if they don't agree with what you're purchasing at a store. Our vision for the organization is to have it asset-backed, firstly, but also expand throughout the province to give people access to our services throughout Alberta. People like the feeling of being able to have a branch that's close by. The intention is to actually expand to give more access to basically everybody that would like to take advantage of Bow Valley's credit union's value proposition of promoting freedom, liberty, and capitalism, entrepreneurial spirit throughout Alberta. The board members, the senior management team, the staff are all aligned, and therefore, if something were to happen to me or one of the board members, it's instilled within the values of the organization. The board is composed of people within each membership community. One of the priorities is to get representation for each one of the communities as a priority to be on the board. For example, in our current region, we don't want everybody just from Calgary. We want representation from Cochrane. We want representation from Airdrie, because that's where our membership is. It's not just from Calgary or just from Edmonton. So if the Minister of Finance asked us to seize accounts, we could basically tell them to pound sand because we don't fall under their jurisdiction. Other financial institutions in Canada arbitrarily froze people's accounts even though they just contributed $10, $25 and that type of thing. And we took a step back from that and basically wanted to understand it a little bit better because it seemed quite unreasonable to us. It turned out that we were right as the Emergency Act was overturned, but we're not going to arbitrarily freeze people's accounts. Just
So the way we're working with them is that we're on top of doing lobbying the government to change their regulation and have the regulators prevent more regulation. We're gathering members for them in all over Alberta, and the way it works is that you don't have to deal with us to open an account at Bow Valley. You can do it online. It costs you $25 for your social share. But if you want a branch quickly here or in your region, then you're going to pay us to lobby for you and to lobby to open the branch. What we offer as service for BVCU, Bow Valley Credit Union, is that we will give them like at least 200 members. Why 200 members minimum? Because at 200 members, you can create your own credit union, and that allow the main board of Bow Valley to be able to split their branches or separate themselves from their branches if the regulator is getting too much of a pain to deal with. Then the other thing that we're doing for the money that these stakeholders give us is that we're gonna put the branch the closest. So we're mapping all the members and we're putting the branch the closest where the most members are. We're gonna do an assessment of the region, locations, and then finally submit to Bow Valley, and then even job fairs and stuff like that for the opening of that branch, and then give a full package to Bow Valley. So that way, once they receive our package, you can have a branch within 4 to 6 weeks operational. So that's the plan that we're doing with them, and on that, I don't know if you want to add some.
Thank you. We hear it for Ben Trudeau. Thank you, Ben. And Ben was talking about why would you become a stakeholder? And Dr. Mowbray is part of our team now, and I liked how he put it there the other day. He said, how can you help us help you to take a stand so those guys like Brett Oland and Bryce Carl don't get crushed by the World Economic Forum? Because they're dealing in the trillions of dollars when you include BlackRock Capital and Bill Gates and all those guys. And we're just little old Alberta. But together we can stand, and we can stand strong. All of the practical things that Ben listed in what we do when you become a stakeholder client to help the Bow Valley Credit Union become a reality in Medicine Hat is absolutely necessary because it enables them to grow at a much more rapid pace. And of course, Ben's background is urban planning, so it's a good background for that. One of the most important things in your becoming a stakeholder is this. So that with companies like Alberta Independent Refineries and Bow Valley Credit Union and many other many other anchor clients that we'll bring on, is that we can stand against the globalists and we can stand for Alberta companies. And when the politicians at the municipal, provincial, and the federal level start deciding who they're going to be listening to, when we have hundreds and even thousands of stakeholder clients in each and every jurisdiction in this province, they can decide to listen to the globalists, or they can decide to listen to who's going to be putting them in office the next time. We've let this slip away from us. One of our key mottos, and it's so true: freedom is not free. Listening to Leighton Gray the other night, he's a very dear friend of ours and a very, very well-known freedom lawyer from up in Cold Lake. He was at our meeting in Bonnyville. And he was talking about how much of a head start the globalists have had on us. And it goes back 100 years ago. But if you really want a more recent date, Klaus Schwab and Henry Kissinger have been close friends for more than 50 years now. And as Leighton said the other night, Henry Kissinger was the Secretary of State under Richard Nixon back in the early 70s. And as Leighton said, he's still alive, unfortunately. But since the 70s, he and Schwab have been very close friends. Schwab, of course, is the chairman of the World Economic Forum. And it was in 1971 that President Nixon took gold and took it off as the gold standard for the US dollar. And one of the things that Henry Kissinger said in a 1974 convention he was in, he said, "Whoever controls three things controls the nations. If we can control your energy, we can control your nation. If we can control your food supply, we can control your nation. And if we can control the money supply, we control the nation." And you only have to look over the last year and see those things like digital ID, and one of the leading banks in Alberta pushing digital ID along with maybe second only to TD Bank is the Alberta Treasury Branch. They've gone socialist a long time ago. They've been listening to the Rockefellers and the David Suzuki's and the Tides Foundation for far too long now. That whole board needs to be fired. But the reality is, the banks are not our friend. And they're following those three principles. Control your energy, they control the nation. Control the food, they control the nation. Control your wealth and your banks, and they control the nation. It's ironic, actually, two of the three are current clients with us now on the other side. On our energy side, Bryce is a fourth-generation Albertan. And I said to Bryce one day, he's an entrepreneur like anybody else, and he's in to make a dollar in what he's doing. But he said the greatest thing that drives him, gets him up every day, and keeps him driving Alberta Independent Refineries is when he looks at his grandkids. And he wants to leave Alberta 50 years from now in a better place than he found it. And he tells a great story of how his ancestors came here in covered wagons. It's quite a story. I was at the ranch there listening to it one whole afternoon. And he's passionate about Alberta. He's passionate about our four principles. Our four principles, our mission statement is Renaissance thinking, a new kind of thinking, parallel economy, taking another angle than the way it's being done now, because the status quo is going to take us to hell in a handbasket and will look more like Venezuela in the next 5 years than you could even dreadfully imagine. So we're taking a parallel approach and growing local GDP. And for all Alberta businesses, that they all shall prosper. But they need your help and they need our help. We've been in the back rooms fighting the good fight for 40 years. Not to say that we're anybody, but that's where we cut our teeth. What we're doing right now are 3 leading projects, 2 of which are now clients and 1 is about to become a client, are the same 3 principles that Kissinger talked about, how we can control you. What's that? Yes, and I'm going to let Ben speak about that.
Yeah, so our third project, and we're going to have a video soon for that, but it's basically mobile slaughterhouse. So the legislation since Cargill, since the Nelson Brothers the conglomerate of slaughterhouses and sold to Cargill many years ago. And then Cargill did the lobby to shut down everybody else. And then we are at this point with 6 slaughterhouses in this province that slaughter all of the beef that can be sold freely in the market. So there's other ways, there's another small slaughterhouse, you can buy a half cow, a full cow, but if you want to slaughter your beef instead of Sobeys, there's 6 places when that can happen in this province right now. There used to be 40-something 20 years ago. So what we're looking at doing with one of our clients is to acquire one of the remaining 4 beside Cargill and GPS, and then apply for an extension of permits. And something that has been done very recently, starting like last January, with COVID, it enabled us to change the legislation on how slaughterhouses are inspected. So right now you need to have a vet going on site, and even, well, now you can video inspect slaughterhouse. And that opens the door so the plan there is to buy one of the 4 remaining slaughterhouses and then apply for an expansion of lines, of slaughter lines, and an expansion of the permit. But instead of building the building up, we're gonna add to the lines existing in that slaughterhouse 50 trailers, semi-trailers that will go on farm or rancher farms, slaughter on site with video inspection, and then the farmers will rent a reefer to age his beef on site, pack it there and all that, and resell it. So that's stage 1 before we can definitely change the regulations and bring it back to something more viable. So that's the third project. So with these 3 projects, these 3 leading projects, we start taking back control of our sovereignty on energy, on food, and on our money with Bow Valley. On that, Doug, if you can...
One last thing I want to say. And that's why we're asking you to partner with us and partner with these clients so that we can take back Alberta. And last thing I'll say is, Klaus Schwab has his Agenda 2030, where you'll own nothing but be happy. Alberta Free is announcing very soon that we have our own agenda. And we have Alberta Freedom Agenda 2027. And we do invite you to be a part of that to help this be the freest jurisdiction in the world. And with this, we'll pass it on to Doug. Thank you, Ben.
Right, give him a round of applause. Good news. Right on. Well, that's lots for you guys to chew on. Dan Crawford is going to just kind of walk by your table, and if you've written some questions down, I've got a couple here already. I'm just asking you if there's something from tonight that you're going, that didn't quite make sense. And that's okay, because there's a lot of information. Dan will collect a couple. We'll start answering a few of them here. And just raise your hand and hand it off to Dan. And we'd love to spend time, because our goal here is really, really important, is that if something here tonight intrigued you, and you're going, you know what, okay, that got my attention. Maybe it's the slaughterhouse, maybe it's the bank, maybe it's the energy. We don't want you to leave here with unanswered questions, because it's easy to go home and just kind of fall back into life, right? So we'll stay here as long as you need to get your questions answered. And then when we're all done the Q&A, at the very back of the room, we've actually got a project sheet for each sphere. So on there, it describes the project, and it's really, really a lot of information. So we're going to be at that back table, and we'll answer questions. All right, so I'm going to do this first one here, and sometimes, the problem is we use acronyms, assuming that, so that this is a good one, and thank you for asking it. What does SME stand for?
Small and medium enterprises.
So small and medium business.
Everything but those globalist pigs. How's that? That's a not so nice way of saying it. All right. Oh, can Bow Valley merge with Service Credit Union?
If Service Credit Union is willing and able to change the entire board of directors and 3/4 of the employees, yes.
What's the basic difference?
Well, the basic difference, I will tell you how they came to be rolled back, is that when COVID hit and when the vaccine mandate came in, Brad Olin was president at the time and decided to send a directive in all of his 6 branch saying, you do not ask anyone to get vaccinated. It's a personal decision. We're a financial institution. We're not there to give health advice to our employees. And then there's 2-3 members of his board that will haul up all, oh, what are you doing? And a bunch of employees, hey, what are you doing? And then say, if you're not happy, go away. And that's what happened. So it's part of his board members left, and all the employees that were not aligned with that freedom statement left. So then he rehired people that are aligned with that, and then now he's able to go ahead and push stuff and find decisions that are actually good financially, like being rolled back.
All y'all really out of union. Are there plans on opening a Bow Valley Credit Union branch in this area? And in the meantime, could we still open an account there?
Yes, the answer is yes and yes. You can open an account with Bow Valley Credit Union tonight. And I'm going to pass it back to Ben so he can share with you what it will take to have a Bow Valley Credit Union in Medicine Hat. And that's the reason we're here tonight, is to help to drive that support for Bow Valley Credit Union right here in Medicine Hat, and also to provide the support and the resiliency and the stability for everyone in this room to be able to have ongoing access to inexpensive diesel fuel.
So if you want a Bow Valley Credit Union in Medicine Hat, what needs to happen is that you're going to pay another $950 per person, per account, to be able to open a branch. I will tell you why, because opening a branch is very expensive. You need to, there's a lot of pre-work that needs to be done. And right now, some members of their branch in Banff and Airdrie and like they want, that they are okay for an expansion, but they don't want to flip all the bill for that expansion. So they say, you know what, if region wants us to be there, they're going to be involved. I will give you a comparison of that 950 versus other fees. If you decide tomorrow to open a credit union, the Medicine Hat Credit Union, which is Goldback, and you have the right to do it. So what do you need for that? You will need 200 members, then you will need a minimum of 1.5 million in deposit and in to find a branch and to sign a lease and to hire that's the minimum it will cost you. So if you have a 200 member at 1.5 million, it's $7,500 each. That's over and above the membership price. So the deal we have with them and the way we structure that is very advantageous for the members to see a branch coming soon. The other option you have is just become a member and wait for others to step in, and maybe in 2, 3, 4, 5 years you may have a branch. The good thing with Bow Valley as well, the way they see their branches, they find it's very important to be face-to-face with the clients. So they are the only institution that developed 2 steps of branches. So when they will open the branch in Medicine Hat to be faster, they will open only a counter, let's say for a couple of computers, a couple of staff that will offer service. And then as the branch grows, then they will grow up and grow in a bigger branch for full service. The big difference for a full service branch, you need about 40 million deposit to make it viable. For the little branch, you need 5 million deposit to make it viable. So this is why we can do in 2 steps. But as a member, it's only one shot, one payment of $950 to go for both steps. No, you don't. There won't be a second round of money to raise money for it to expand the branch to a full service.
And that 950 also goes in the long term to be that voice
Yes.
against the political machine, so that Brett can still continue to be bold in his stance.
Yeah. And one question, we were in Bonnyville on Friday night to a gymnasium half full of people, and one of the questions we got a couple times, and I want to make sure it's really, really clear, is that you pick a project, it's $950 for that project. So that doesn't cover all 7 projects, it's on a per project basis, but it is a one-time cost. Okay, so just want to make sure that's really clear. Here's one, and I'll let you guys just choose who gets to read this one. With current government structures, both provincial and federal, and the legislation all throughout Alberta, how does Alberta regain its power and control over these 3 main growth strategies? And I think they're talking about the money, the food, and done.
So the thing is that Alberta already has the power to take back control. No, the federation that we live in is a federation. It's not a unitarian system. So we have the power to take back back a lot of these structures. Plus, we have a second help, is that Quebec already done it. So we have a model on the other side of the country that shows us how can it be done by remaining in the Canadian Canadian Confederation. How can we take back your stuff? Because in Quebec, they control 100% their finance. They even have their Quebec Bank Act. In Quebec, they control the immigrations. They control their revenues. When you live in Quebec, you do 2 revenue, one for Quebec, one for the feds. So they control the input of their money. They control financially their businesses. So in Quebec, they created 2 major financial arms. One is like Caisse de Dépôt. So Caisse de Dépôt is an investment bank, if you want, that they're the one that owns the cross-array mills. It's owned by the Caisse de Dépôt from Quebec. They own a bunch of shopping centers, a bunch of assets. And then they have another arm, which is the Société Générale de Financement. And Société Générale de Financement, it's a corporation that had a slush fund of $4 billion to prevent any companies that is resource-based, that is important for Quebec on the list of the main stuff that you need to control, to go on a non-Quebec control. To give you an example, in 1999, Rogers made an offer to buy Videotron, which was the largest cable network of Quebec. The premier, the morning he heard that, he stopped the transaction, went to see Société Générale and said, "You will find somebody to buy that, Rogers won't buy it." And then Rogers was not able to make the deal. Because for Quebec, an Ontario investment is a foreign investment. A New Brunswick investor is a foreign investment. A Nova Scotia investor is a foreign investment. Alberta investment is a foreign investor. So it's very easy to flip the switch with the right premier, with the right government, with the right will, and to start very quickly shifting the balance on all of these sectors.
That's exactly it.
Awesome. All right, this is a 2-part question. If the feds do go with digital currency and cash becomes worthless, then how does a bank being gold backed help us have some kind of money to buy things with? Some sound.
Yeah, that's a very good question. So when fiat currency collapse, commodity like gold and silver go up. And the Bow Valley right now have around 10% in gold of their asset. And then they want to crank it to 20%. So if you look at 20%, so right now they're worth $500 million, $545 million. So you're looking at about $50 million in gold and silver. If the currency collapse and the gold go skyrocket high, and then they will be able to give you the same value pre-crisis for what you have in hand for your purchasing power with the gold that they have. So that's how it works, and it's been proven over and over again in the past with Argentina, Brazil, South America had a lot, and even Germany after the war. We have a lot of examples of collapsing currencies that were able to restart because of their gold and silver backing it up.
Okay. And the second one I'm going to answer is, can you explain what is the value in buying gold and silver? What benefits does that have? So just to piggyback on what Ben just said, gold and silver, when I was selling it back 15 years ago, I was a financial advisor and I wanted to start selling bullion to my clients. I thought, you know what, all I was selling was paper goods, right? And I wanted them to have something physical. And I thought, you know what, silver and gold. And I explained this, that don't think of this as an investment. Think of it as an insurance policy.
Right.
So when that paper stuff with the picture of the queen, or maybe one day king now, in our pockets, becomes worth less and less and less, which is happening right now, right? That's inflation, that's our currency becoming worth less. You've got silver and gold, which is that hedge against inflation. So I strongly advise, take a portion of the cash that you got in the bank and put it into silver and gold. And don't put that in your safety deposit box. You don't want to trust the bank to hold on to your assets. And actually here tonight, Kurt, can you just stand up and give a wave? So Kurt actually works with a company called Pure Gold Silver, and he's been at a few of our presentations. You can actually talk to him after. We're not affiliated with him, but we like him. And you can actually buy gold and silver, and he can help you if you don't have somebody locally. But the other thing actually Kurt can do is if you've got registered money, so RSPs, and you have to go, man, I don't want to cash it all out and pay up the wazoo in tax. Kurt can actually show you how to take your RSPs and convert them from, whatever stock or mutual fund they're in, and convert it into precious metals. So you can chat with Kurt about that after. And then what mechanisms are in place for a local Bow Valley branch in our community to hold the wider organization accountable to our interests?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So Bow Valley has, when they start a branch, and this is why we're looking at 200 members, because when you're 200 members, we have the power to be independent. And as we're going to grow the branches, you will have the opportunity to hold your own board of your own branch, or your local board of your branch. A good example with that, the largest credit union in Canada is Desjardins in Quebec. So Desjardins, they have 1,300 branches across the province and 7 million members out of the 8 million population. And Desjardins is out of the 1,300 branches, they still have 485 out of the 1,300 that have their own board. So Bow Valley and credit union can have that kind of hybrid model where the farther you are, you can create your own board and manage your own thing, despite being linked with the main organization.
Awesome. That's the last question. I'm going to blend into how I'm wrapping the evening up. So we're done. You guys can go sit down and have another piece of dessert. So guys, I want to just wrap things up this evening. And then again, we're not going anywhere fast. We're sticking around. We're actually staying in Medicine Hat overnight. So even tonight, if you don't get your questions answered, or you might just want to go home and ponder a little bit, if you're interested in meeting with myself or one of the other guys, we'll be around in the morning, and we can definitely sit over a coffee and after you've slept on things. Yeah.
I didn't understand Mr. Trudeau when he said about the bank. Did he say they had 20% over or under of the money deposited?
The goal is to get to 20% of their depositors' money in gold.
No, not deposits or assets.
Assets.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
One more question. You got $100 and they got $20 worth of gold, is that what you're telling me?
no, what I'm telling you is that if you have, so they're backing the asset of the credit union. So that credit union right now is worth $545 million. That's the asset of the credit union. They know that the loan to ratio of credit union is about 2 to 1, so they probably manage close to $1 billion altogether. That credit union, and then the gold is backing up the asset of the organization. So if there's a collapse of the currency, well, the first level of protection is CDAC, which is federal. That will probably fail because they only hold 1% of all the deposit of Canadian that they guarantee. So if there's a system failure, they will fail. The second is that the Association of Credit Union in Alberta, they guarantee 100% of all deposits in the account. But they don't guarantee the assets of the credit union itself, like the buildings, the fact that credit union will remain in business. No, this is not guaranteed. This is not protected. So if the fiat collapse, most likely the key will go in the door of most credit union because they won't be able to cope like everybody else with their obligations as a main organization. So what they've done, they back their assets. So they make sure that if there's a collapse, and right now what they know, they did some scenario. Let's say right now we're running at, let's say, $2,900 an ounce of gold. If there's a fiat collapse compared to what happened like in Brazil or in Argentina in the 80s, the gold will probably shoot up at, I don't know, 29,000, 30, like 10, 100 times more, 1,000 times more. And if you apply that in the reserve they have versus the deposit they have right now, their calculation is that if there was a collapse right away, they will be able to cover their depositor. But the calculation is not made on the depositor's money. The calculation is made on the asset of the credit union itself. So on the initial 500 million asset of the credit union. Sorry, what? Sorry?
I said, do you not believe that it isn't the elite, the Schwabs and all them, Klaus Schwab, and he's just a minion for some other people? Do you not believe those are the people that control the price of gold?
Well, I do believe that. It's kind of obvious, but at the same time, I was, and I'm not at all specialist in there, I'm just like the guy that relay information, but at the same time, I believe there's something like 100 paper for every ounce of gold that is on the market. Is that right, Kurt? But what's the ratio of? No, it's called paper gold versus real gold. And right now there's something like 100 paper gold for every 1 ounce of real gold. So the day there's a collapse, anybody shoot to get gold, they won't be able to have it because it doesn't exist. And this is what they control right now, mainly as price. Where at the Beauvais Credit Union, not only do they buy the gold, but they hold them in their vault. So the gold is locally here in Alberta, held in vaults physically. So if there's a collapse of the fiat and an increase of the gold, it's a physical gold that will make the difference. And again, no, it's a doomsday scenario. No, it's an extreme scenario. There's other stuff that needs to happen before that, but just knowing at least that your financial institution take your money at heart enough to protect their own asset and yours by the same link, because you are owner of that as a credit union. I believe just that is a statement by its own. It's the first step towards further protection.
Well, we got one more question, and it's a political one. So you only get 30 seconds, okay? You could go for 5 minutes on this one. Could we not separate like Quebec did?
Well, so Quebec has a special status because Quebec is not separated. Quebec didn't sign the 1982 Patriation of Constitution, so they didn't sign up the document, and they signed up because we call it the night. I will take a bit more than 3 seconds. Just tell us this one. So we call it in Quebec the night of the long knives. So there's 2 individuals that managed to patriate the Constitution. To their advantage, it was Jean Chrétien, was Mr. Revenue, and Brian Peckford, Premier of Newfoundland, that managed to meet in the kitchen and bypass all the Premier to rock their stuff in. So what happened, basically, Trudeau sent everybody back home, say, okay, we start negotiation tomorrow morning, And René Lévesque woke up that morning with the front page of the newspaper that the other premier came to an agreement. So when Lévesque saw that, he just like left and said, okay, that's enough, or I'm not part of that BS. And that was orchestrated by Brian Peckford and Jean Chrétien at the time. And by the way, Newfoundland, when you look at per capita basis, Newfoundland is the one that received the most of the redistribution of our money. So if you take a Newfoundlander family of 4, the average, since the beginning of the Constitution, the average money has been sent to Alberta for a family of 4 is about $40, $10 each. So we can pay like for a good meal. If you look in Newfoundland, it's $195,000 per person. So a family of 4 received close to $1 million in redistribution of revenues since the bill has been made. So in 1982, it was a Newfoundland deal with Liberals.
Excellent. A little over 30 seconds, but that was a tough question. All right, so in wrapping up tonight, I wanted each of you to grab the feedback form that you got when you went to the registration table. And these forms are really important for us because over the next 5 weeks, so it's 5 weeks today that we have this provincial election, we're actually going to be hitting the road all 5 weeks. We're going to be in different places in Alberta. And we want to continue making this presentation better and better. So if you take the time to fill out your information on there, we also would like to add you onto our newsletter list. And if you don't want that, you don't need to fill that information out, but we'd like you to receive our latest newsletter. And we have a Rumble channel and different things that you can see some of our content. So as you're filling that out, I just want to encourage you that, right now, all the information you heard tonight, I think you would all agree there's a lot at stake, right? There's one of two ways things could go in 5 weeks. And obviously, I think if you're in this room, I know that, you want things to become freer and more prosperous. So I want to encourage each of you to think, okay, what would it take for me to become a stakeholder? Pick a project that would make the biggest difference in your life. Which one? Maybe it's the credit union. You think, you know what? I don't want to ever succumb to my information being shared with all branches of the federal government and the World Economic Forum, right? Because that's the reality of where things are at. So just encourage you to consider that. The one question I did get that fits right in here is, what do seniors on fixed income? How can we become shareholders or stakeholders? And so what we actually did just last week is we decided we don't want the $950 to be a hurdle. So we did basically we split it up over 12 months. So if that's something that's of interest and you just go, you know what, I can't do that, talk to us at the back table and we'll discuss how that would work if you're on a fixed income or it's just a little bit tight for you. So as you're filling out your form, there may be some of you who go, you know what, I gotta rush out of here, I just, gotta percolate more. That's fine. We appreciate every single one of you for being here. If you're sitting there and you're going, you know what, I just got a couple questions and didn't, need to get quite enough clarity, we're gonna be at that back table. And those project sheets are really, really good for clarity because sometimes the visual is really helpful. So we want to be back there to engage with you. Maybe you're saying, you know what, I want to take a step forward and I just want to figure out which project. We're going to have a separate table at the back, and it's just a one-page contract. So it's a very, very simple contract, and we can go through that with you. We've actually got the ability to process if you wanted to pay on debit or credit card. We've got one of those cool little things, squares. And or we also take e-transfer, so that's a possibility as well. Over the next 5 weeks, we're going to be doing events in Drayton Valley, Red Deer, Calgary. We'll come back to this neck of the woods if there's interest up north. So if you know people, in different areas of Alberta, share our website with them. We'll have all of our events listed on the website. You can register online. And if you have places that you'd like us to hold events, let us know. If you know somebody who's a real leader or influencer in that area, those are the kind of people that can promote events and help us out. We're also very soon, 2 more things, very soon going to start doing webinars. So, I know Kai mentioned there was a number of people who couldn't be here tonight. Hopefully next week we'll be set up to start doing webinars where somebody can just kind of log in from home and see a presentation. Basically be using the same information as tonight, so that'll be helpful as well.